A man who, quite honestly, I think 5 years ago, more Americans, at least I did, thought some of the stuff he was saying was crazy. A lot of it made sense, but some of it was crazy, I thought. How many things was he right on that I have come to do my own homework, and each of us have come to do our own homework and saw, no, he wasn't crazy. He was ahead of his time. One of the things that he talked about that was crazy territory even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, he had to be a nut job to think about the Fed. Oh, yeah, okay, the Fed. No, the Fed is the reason why we're paying high gas prices. And today they're having their first press conference. First one in 97-year history. Really? Ron Paul joins us now. Hello, Congressman. How are you, sir?
Doing fine, Glenn. Nice to be with you.
Good to be with you. Why is the Fed having this press conference today, and what's brought this press conference about for the first time in 97 years?
Well, I think people have awoken because they want more transparency. They want to know what's going on, and they know more about the Fed now than they've ever before. So the grassroots now are asking for more transparency, and I think we saw that last year when we were relatively successful in moving our audit the Fed bill along. We had every Republican sign on to it. We passed it in the House. We got a partial audit. But people now are looking at the Fed as the culprit rather than the savior, and rightfully so. So I think it's the people who have wakened up to this, and I think programs like yours and many others who have talked about this have given out a lot of information, and they now realize how important it is. And Bernanke is on the defensive now, and he was forced now to at least to appear like there's going to be more transparency. So I think it's a good sign, but I'm not sure you're going to hear everything we need to hear today at this press conference.
The president is going after the oil companies and gas station dealers and saying, well, we've got to go after them because that fix is in. There's corruption there, and of course the speculators. Donald Trump today, he came out and said it's OPEC. I believe it is the Fed printing the money, and it's not that hard to figure out when oil is pegged to the dollar. That's why our gas prices are going up. True or false?
I think you're absolutely right. That's the number one reason. The second reason is the interference in the development of energy here. You know, whether we can drill and development of nuclear energy, so we don't have a free market here.
Well, I mean, if you're going to go that way too, it's also what's happening in the Middle East. And the unrest in the Middle East, which our government is encouraging.
Yeah, that's absolutely. That is the case. So, but the monetary issue is the big issue. That's what it was in the 70s. But the people who say that it's OPEC is powerful, and they do manipulate. They do everything they can. But I remember very clearly that at the end of the inflationary cycle of the 70s, oil hit $40 a barrel, which was very, very high. And yet Reagan came in, and there were some deregulations. It was more competitive. OPEC would have these quarterly or, biannual meetings, and they would announce that we're going to all cut, and they all cheated. Oil went down to $10 a barrel because of the deregulation and Volcker's change in the monetary policy. He slowed up the printing presses, and the psychology changed, and oil prices dropped. I don't think it'll be that easy this time. I think there's been so much inflation of the money supply, they're going to have a hard time turning it off. And the combination of bad policy plus monetary policy, I think we could see gasoline prices between $5 and $10 in the not too distant future.
You have said that you're thinking about running for president. Have you announced that you are running for president, or you've started your process?
The exploratory committee.
Right.
And yes, I'm thinking about it, and I will be announcing in that regards, within a couple of weeks. But, there's going to be a debate on the 5th in South Carolina. And at first they said you didn't have to be an announced candidate, and I thought that would be good. I can keep studying this and making my decision in due time. But then they came along and they changed the rules, and they said, well, you have to be a little bit more committed. You have to at least have filed an exploratory committee, and that prompted me to do that yesterday. I thought maybe I could make the decision and not go through that extra step. It's a little extra bookkeeping. But a lot of the things that we do as candidates has to do with trying to be careful with how the laws are written, and you don't get crossways with the FEC.
Is there any chance that people like Donald Trump don't understand the printing of the money supply with the Fed and don't understand velocity of money, and would excuse him for making such a ridiculous comment like it is OPEC?
I don't think he's probably. I mean, he obviously has had some experience in real estate, but then some people say he has had an experience with bankruptcies too. But I don't think if you sat down with him, and I know you in the last several years have studied and understand Austrian economics, and if you ask him about monetary policy and Austrian economics and Mises and Hayek and Rothbard, and I know you've quoted some of them already, so I don't think he would have known much about them, nor does, in many ways, he's a populist Keynesian. We all have a populist streak in us because we care about the average person, but I think he comes across more of as a populist Keynesian rather than an understanding of free markets and sound money and talking about the downside of the Federal Reserve.
Since the media would require everybody to constantly be asked this question and be on the record, are you satisfied with the birth certificate that was finally released today?
Well, I'm satisfied that I haven't gained much more interest in the subject. Me personally, I'm satisfied, but I don't think it'll satisfy a lot of people. I think no matter what, they'll continue to ask questions. And
do you think that's a good debate to have? I mean, look, at some point when this was started by the Hillary Clinton campaign.
Yeah, that's interesting. Nobody remembers that.
Right.
Hardly.
When this was started by the Hillary Clinton campaign, it was an interesting thing to say, well, produce it. And it is interesting to see how long it has taken him to produce something that is not that hard or difficult to produce. However, does it not hurt the dialogue in America at this point, because the issues that we have are pressing, they are imminent? I mean, nobody's talking about the Fed today. They're all talking about the birth certificate.
No, and they're talking about that, and let's say it is true. What's anybody going to do about it? Is tomorrow going to be removed from office? I mean, I'm much more concerned about the Federal Reserve and my personal liberties, all our personal liberties, as well as our foreign policy, and the abuse of our civil liberties by this president. That is so overwhelmingly imminent that we can do something about that, and we can change that and emphasize the importance of it. I don't think this debate over the birth certificate is going to resolve in anything really positive in the change, in our with our immediate problems that we have.
I know you and I have a difference on foreign policy, not as much as I think we used to, but. Have a difference in our foreign policy. However, would you agree with me that you think that our administration has abandoned our traditional allies, and it appears that Israel is being set up? A, and B, I'm not talking about military support. I'm talking about vocal support that Israel has a right to defend itself. Not for us to defend it, but for Israel to defend itself.
That was part of my argument, in the last campaign and in the debates, was that I thought what we were supposedly doing for Israel was actually going to backfire on them, that we subsidize them and sort of take care of them, but then if they want to have a peace treaty with somebody and work out something with a border, we object. But if they want to defend their border, we will object. And they lose sovereignty when they become dependent on us. I believe right now, because of our policies and because of our policies failing in the Middle East and the Mediterranean, they're more vulnerable than ever. Because when you think that we were propping up artificially, the Egyptian government. But, with all these overthrows, they're liable to get more radical people. Now, what happens
that's
if
a crazy conspiracy theory.
What happens when we have the downfall of our economy and we can't take care of anybody? We can't even take care of our people at home. I think Israel is going to be in a tough spot. They're in a pretty powerful position. I don't think you have to worry about them because they have the nuclear weapons and none of the rest do. So that's a pretty strong defense. But without, this dependency on the United States, because just as the people in this country aren't going to be able to depend on our printing presses and take care of people in all these entitlement programs, how can we take care of the world? So
let me go back and restate the question one more time, or just say the question again. Will you vocally support Israel's right to defend itself?
Oh, absolutely. I do it all the time. I think everybody has the right to take care of themselves, and that they have lost their sovereignty with our foreign policy. That should be their business. Matter of fact, I think there was a vote I took back in the 80s, and I was all by myself because I wouldn't condemn Israel. Oh, I think it had to do with the bombing of the nuclear reactor in Iraq. I didn't particularly endorse their position, but I endorsed their right to do what they thought necessary, because at that time the UN in the United States actually condemned them, for doing this. So I think they should do what they need to do, but I don't think it should be at the expense of the American taxpayer.
All right. What one thing that we should be watching in this Fed conference today? What would it be?
Well, I think they should. What they're going to not find out is not much. They're not going to get real information. There's going to be no admission of the failure of their policy, and the markets are going to be watching. Is he going to hint that he's going to change policy? But there are not that many options. So I think what they're going to watch for and get is no significant change and no big announcements.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ron. Appreciate it, Congressman Ron Paul.